we missing? Is Blanchett coming today? Anyone know? He likes to run in at the 11:59 hour. Let me text him. I know Shannon's out today. You see him? Mr. Blanchett can make his way over to his seat. Alright, first up, agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Perkins Eastman has a couple things they're going to present. I don't know if we really need to amend the agenda to reflect that, Lisa?
No, because they have an update.
Yeah, it's generic. All-inclusive? Okay. And I don't think we're voting on anything. We are voting on one thing.
Okay.
So, everyone should have emailed a copy of the quote they're going to go over today. Geotech?
Geotech seating service.
Yeah, thank you. So let's add that to the agenda, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Under Perkins, Section 8. Anything else for Newfield or Arcadis? You guys are good with the agenda? Okay. All right, then I'll take a motion to approve the agenda with the one addition under Perkins Eastman for the quote approval or review, possible approval.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Anyone abstaining? Motion carries. Minutes from March 6th. You should have all received a copy in the email. It's a pretty easy meeting. Anyone have any? Matt, any? Okay. He's got eagle eyes. He always finds the good stuff.
I know, it's not so long.
So do we.
Paying off.
All right, if not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from March 6th.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Anyone abstaining? Motion carries. All right. Any public comments? Anyone here from the public making comments? No. Any submittals? No. Okay. So only thing I have is we had the Family Resource event, fair? Expo. Thank you. I was looking for the right word. Expo a couple weeks ago. It went pretty good. I feel like we got a good stream of people coming through. We had some names. Did you ever bring back the boards?
I've been driving around with them for 2 years.
So you have them in your car?
Yes.
Okay, so he's got them in his car if you guys want to grab it. And there's a list of names that people signed up for the newsletter too, so you can add that in. While I was there, I did speak to the Cromwell Arts Alliance about maybe seeking their interest in designing some of the artwork for the school. Thank you, Jessica, for the idea. It was a really good idea. I like it. I like the idea because it brings like some Cromwell business focus, or like an organization, I think, right? Roots to the whole project, blending it all together. Interestingly enough, I don't think I realized that the Cromwell Arts District is really just for downtown. They're like a whole separate thing, so they don't really deal with the rest of Cromwell. They're just downtown. I didn't realize that. But the Cromwell Arts Alliance does deal with all of town. So I copied you, Heather, on the email if you can get together with her. And they're not free, so we'll need a quote and all that. And then once they have all the information they need, we'll see what kind of quote proposal they have, whatever. I don't know how that's going to work with the town. We'll have to think about that. Because they have rules, so I have to figure out how these rules will apply for them.
Yeah, but we'll just figure out what the options are, if it's something that's viable or not.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, we're just asking. We're just exploring at this point to see what options they have. What else? Jack, you're gonna update us on the solar panel letter? Okay. And fence, we haven't gone to the town or planning or zoning about the fence change. Do we have to do that soon?
Depends on what you're intending to do. I think there had been some back and forth about whether it was the wood rail fence or the rail fence with wire.
I thought we voted on the wood rail fence with wire.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay. Was I here for that?
I think so.
You were.
Maybe not.
Can't blame it on Emily then.
So, but we do have to go to planning and zoning because it is a change to what's in the plan, even though it doesn't change the, do we have to go to planning and zoning even though it doesn't change the,
It's different than the original fence proposed, so they want to be consulted.
okay, all right, so we'll have to do that. All right.
Should be administrative.
I know, that's what I was thinking, like, it shouldn't even have to be. Could you just email Stu and ask him before we make the effort to have to go present to them?
Different, but it's the same size.
It's the same size, it has the same level of protective barrier.
We'll reach out before we go through a formal submittal.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, that's all I had. Communications. Okay. Design subcommittee.
The only thing I just wanted to talk about was the wall graphics. I wasn't here last week for the meeting, but I did watch it. So I just wanted to make it clear for everyone else on the full committee that the design subcommittee did not have what we felt were any final designs to bring to the group. What we had was a 1-hour meeting. It was never expressed to us that it was like the final pass and decisions had to be made. It was our assumption that based on the content of the meeting and that they provided us with some themes we could lean toward. They did have a couple options, but it wasn't by any means finalized, that they would then go back with our feedback and kind of rework things and we would regroup. Had we known it was a kind of a one-shot deal, I would have handled it differently and had the design subcommittee meet ahead of time, pool our ideas and thoughts together, kind of come up with a game plan to then present to Perkins to then put them on a path. So I think it was just there was a communication either lapse or it wasn't clear what the understanding was of that process. So we were not aware that it was as time boxed as apparently it was.
So there were some questions last week too about, were any of the wall graphics finalized? So we've had the logos, which we don't, not including logos, like logo placement. Or did we finalize on any wall graphics? Nothing. So Main Street, the library or the media center, and the academic halls were the.
And the cafeteria. So
And the
there were 4
cafeteria.
spaces.
I thought the cafeteria was just a logo.
Well,
No?
we were talking about what
Oh, the
what
color
it would
scheme.
look like.
Okay.
And they did have an idea of, they had taken the SOAR theme of the school and
Yeah.
kind of pulled out those keywords and did like a word collage graphic. But we had asked the color scheme to just kind of be updated to tie in better with the cafeteria colors. But the Main Street wall graphic was not anything we felt that was final to bring to the full committee. I don't think there was anything definitive for the media center. I think it was just some themes that we could have, kind of which direction we wanted to go, and then the same with the breakout spaces.
Well, yeah, and I remember the only thing I ever saw for the breakout spaces was the placeholder images.
Right, which we've been seeing since
Day
the
one.
conception.
Yeah. Is that different than what you were told?
Not exactly. So I think we did present themes at that first meeting with the number of options for each of the spaces. We got some feedback. Rebecca went back and did some revisions to the different options. We had another meeting scheduled for, I think it was December 1st, which we ended up canceling following the email that we received from Heather about some of the concerns with the graphics. And at that point, we decided to table it until we got through bidding, so that the team can focus on getting through the bids. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, so you guys had discussed themes, but not actual graphics weren't provided
No, graphics were presented with the themes.
for all the spaces?
Yes, I believe so.
No, there was nothing.
So you're saying that meeting was canceled or postponed, so
Right.
don't you owe us that meeting so we can review
Yeah,
one
we're
more
gonna
time?
have that meeting,
go over,
yes. But based on
bounce some
the
ideas.
feedback that we received from Heather through the email, we made some other revisions, and at that point, there was some concerns that were raised about how far we were going with the graphics and how much we need to spend on that design. So,
Because we thought there'd be more back and forth a little bit and,
Mhm.
get our feedback once you guys came back the second time, which that didn't happen yet.
right,
So have we already spent our budget on wall graphics?
for design.
But we
Pretty
weren't
much
given-
at this point, yes.
We weren't told what that even looked like.
Yeah, there was
so.
no defined budget for that, but, so, we will be presenting more on that, hopefully at the next meeting.
So the design work was kind of like a toss-in that they offered for us.
I don't get why, like, every meeting, we have, like, some argument about, we have an expectation, and then, our expectation was that everything is in here. And then, like, little by little, oh, we don't have that. So, I mean, if we're gonna go to another company to get this thing finalized, I'm expecting a credit for meetings, submittals, RFIs, 'cause somebody else is gonna take it on. So what's that credit worth?
I don't know.
I just would have handled things differently had I known we were in a box of a time limit. Or an hour usage or whatever. But I guess it's on me for not asking or assuming
Well, I
that
mean, I think
we could have more than one pass.
I don't think it's a crazy assumption that there's going to be back and forth design on something that's going to be like a visual representation. I mean, this is stuff that the public, like, everyone's going to see, right? We have to be right about it. And the one graphic I did see for Main Street was not acceptable. Like, all right.
So how do we do this going forward? Because I think I ask the same question every time, so I'm sorry if I'm a broken record, but I just feel like we keep getting surprised by what's in scope or not in scope, or I know we're going to talk about something else this evening, and whether or not it was presented to us before, I don't remember. I don't have all the notes in front of me, but like how do we get in front of all of what's out there? I don't know what's assumed. This is one example. Do we build it, like, do we assume just paint the whole school, don't do any graphics? What's the cost benefit there? Do we ask the Arts Alliance to do
Yeah.
a mural instead? Like, how do we get in front of this?
I think the problem is that we don't have visibility as to what was spent, right? Because both Perkins and Arcadis, they're kind of like they bill the same amount every month, whatever it is. It's like a level of effort type of thing. So we don't know what that equates to in hours for what is actually completed. So the proposal we got from Perkins unfortunately does not match the contract that we signed with them. And I'm not going to get into it in this forum, but and
Can we get into it?
well, because there's legalities around it, and I don't want to get in trouble, to be honest. I don't want to say something that get myself in trouble. But I will say that what our town signed off on and what the lawyer reviewed did not match what was in the proposal. And there was a number of clauses that were either amended or omitted, which resulted in higher costs for this project. One obvious one is the surcharge on subcontractors, and the proposal is 10%, contract had it at 15%. I mean, it's a 5% difference. That's money, right, the town has to spend. Why the disconnect? I don't know. We didn't really look at the contract. I'm not a lawyer. That's why we have a lawyer to do that. But as such, we are going to talk about this other thing coming up. Again, what is or isn't included in the contract compared to what was in the proposal. There's a lot of assumptions made, but getting back to the wall graphics itself, I don't recall seeing anything in the contract to specify like you get one try or 300 hours worth of design work or anything like that. It's just like, we're offering this to you. And Perkins has voiced that they have already overspent, like they've put more hours into this project than they had budgeted for themselves. So I don't even know. Do you know, Jack, in the contract, does it say specifically about wall graphics and having to provide wall? I don't think it does. I think that's something that they just offered to do for us. So from that perspective, like, we should have zero expectations as to what they provide. And if they feel like they've already overextended themselves, then I don't think we really have any way of asking them to do more. It's more like an expectation that was set that's not going to be met, but again,
The problem here is we had this thing go out to bid, and that all these graphics are a cost for that is included in our project.
that's to put them on the wall, not to design it. They're two different things.
I know, but if we wanted to back it out now, we're not going to get the full value that they're worth. Like, we just wanted to paint the wall
Yeah.
and take out the wall graphics, we're going to get pennies on the dollar. This should have all been brought to us before we went out to bid.
Needing more hours for the design work, you mean?
Well, either that or that we were never allowed to make a decision to take them out if they weren't going to design them.
Yeah, well, and I think, your accounting group didn't really discover the issue until after we went to bid, so they didn't know that there was this issue with, I'm just going by what I've been told. I'm assuming,
Through the
I
chair.
review my accounting monthly. If they wait a year, that's on them.
Through the chair. I think part of the issue here is managing expectations, and if you're going to give somebody an expectation that there's a feature you're providing that they may not have articulated in the RFP, but you're going to provide it anyway, then you provide it. To say, I'll provide it, but, oh, by the way, I thought it was going to be one and done. I was going to show you one scheme, you were going to be in love with it, and then I wouldn't have to put any more effort into it. And if that was the assumption on a lump sum project, then I guess that was a wrong assumption on Perkins' part. And I think from a professional standpoint, if you're going to offer something, you follow through with it.
yeah.
I mean, just as an architect myself, I think that's something that
How
is
many-
an expectation that you would be placing, in the mind of a client, and to not follow through with it, and then, halfway through the process or after the fact of offering something that hadn't been explicitly in the scope that was requested of you, and getting people interested in it, and then suddenly pull back and say, oh, well, if you really want it, you got to pay me more. Just doesn't sit well with me as a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're having a hard time with. So, is there anything else that's in front of us that is a situation like this? I'll just, I guess, put that out to everybody. Are there any other services that we thought we were going to be getting that maybe weren't directly spelled out in the RFP? Is there anything else out there?
Mm-hmm.
What?
To be determined.
I know, that's what I'm worried about.
That's why we have an owner's
Yeah.
contingency, because there's always going to be stuff that pops up that was unplanned for.
I get it. The graphics, though, was we've talked about them,
Yeah.
at length.
They were
Are-
presented to us in their renderings.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we gonna have to pay more for the last beam?
I hear you.
Okay.
You want to deal with absolutes at work. That's my hard part.
Yeah.
I mean, there's known risks, right? Like, I think if I were to put on my, not, if I were to take myself out of my own shoes, the whole soil removal thing I think was a known risk. But what wasn't known to us was what the risk to us is. Like, we knew there was a risk that they would find contamination. We knew there was a risk that we'd have to remove soil and how much soil and all that. But I think what we didn't know, and maybe that's what we need to work on, is what does that risk translate to in cost, in terms of cost for us, if we realize that risk. So, like, what I want to know is, looking forward, what are the question marks still on the horizon? What are the things that we're not sure? Like, for example, when we tear apart this old building and get into the core of it, I'm terrified we're going to find, like, skeletons in there, right? Not real skeletons, but just like things in there that you're gonna need like major hazmat to remove. Like, I want to know what that risk, what does that mean? Like, how much, what's the most that could cost us to remove it, so that we can make sure we set that cost aside, because that's at the very tail end of this project. I'm worried that, you know, as we dig up this hole for these footings, that the water is going to be so high and you're not going to be able to pump it up fast enough, and you can be pumping water out for like 5 months because rain and New England, and like what does that mean? Like, we have a short put right now with a, you know, rather smallish quote for some of that today we're going to talk about. But what if that's not enough? Like, is there another risk? Is there another environmental risk that we need to be looking out for, that, you know, in your heads you're like, oh yeah, we're going to have to watch for that, we're going to have to watch for that, but we need you to communicate to us, like, we have this on our minds, like on horizon that we're looking at, and we need to know what that is, because we obviously are not professional. You guys are, you know, so that we can say, oh, well, we need to put that amount aside just in case that happens. Like, that's what risk management is, right? You kind of look towards the future. You look at anything that possibly can go wrong, and as you approach it, you try to mitigate those risks, and if you can't, then you accept them and you pay for them and you fix it. But we need to know, we can't plan for it unless we have some visibility to what those potential risks could be. So I think what we're asking is, what else out there do we think could go wrong? What, you know, in past, you've built many buildings before. What has gone poorly or unexpectedly in past projects that we should say, you know what, I don't think this will be a risk for you guys, but we did see this on another project, and if X happens, it would happen again for this project as well. And we just track them. We just track those risks. As far as the graphics, Joe, are we saying for sure no more graphic design work?
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
I really need to review that with Joe
Okay.
Costa.
Okay. All right.
And I
Okay.
think it's part of the larger conversation that we'll be having.
Yeah, next week. Next
Next
meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Nonetheless, should we, you said you are going to work with the Arts Alliance?
Yeah, we'll
to
get a
just get
quote
some
for them.
quotes on,
Yeah, I'll reach out to her and just kind of, what do they need, the size, what
Yeah.
do they need, kind of, where do we start?
yeah,
I don't want to get too far into it and
right.
have it be something that's just never
Right.
gonna come to fruition or work, but I'll start the conversation.
And I feel like they're used to seeing, like, going up to a wall and seeing it and saying, oh, what can I do with it?
Right.
They're not going to have
No.
that, you know. I mean, we could wait till the very end and say, after the building's built, come in, take a look.
Well, we could tell them the areas that, you know, they want to focus on, so they can think
Yeah.
about themes or
Themes.
shapes and stuff. Yeah.
Right. But if they're going to be designing murals and stuff like that, it's going to take a while for them to, so we probably don't want them to wait till the building's built.
No, because we have like a 1 week period before the kids are there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they design digital murals, or do they do painting?
That's what we need to find out. I did
Okay.
tell them, I said, if, you know, you could just design something and then we could use the budget to go print the, you know,
Yeah.
Graphics,
the stick and scratch, whatever those things are. Scratch and sniff, stick and scratch.
lick and stick.
Wall tattoos, wall tattoos.
But from the sketch, from the blueprints, we'll know the size of the wall, right? So we'll say, oh, there's this wall in the
Yeah, but-
calf, and there's a small wall, and it's this big, and there's other walls, and it's this big.
Right.
So that we tell them the materials that they'd be working against and the size.
We just, hopefully we can find something like relative that they can go up to and feel like this is kind of like what it's going to look like. It's like,
Yeah.
they're artists are visual people, like they need, whatever. But maybe they've done something like this before and they don't need that, I don't know. Hence why we have to have a conversation. All right, okay. Anything else, Heather? Okay. All right, moving on to Perkins. Do you want to go right into?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so last week we received a call, I forget if it was from Newfield or from Ron, about water on the site. We had SLR go out there and take a look, and they did a field report and have some analysis and some feedback as to what they think is going on with the site. So I'm going to turn it over to Rock.
Yeah, I can take it from there. So just for the record, I'm sure this is recorded, so you guys can listen to my voice again. So we received the request within 24 hours because I want to make sure you guys get the absolute best. I showed up to the site, I think it was about 1:30 p.m. So we received the request. There's groundwater concerns. We had just cleared the job site, or we had just cleared the trees that are just adjacent or just north of the baseball fields, and that's kind of where the temporary sediment trap is located. So what's essentially going on is the existing condition. So the existing condition is there's about 20 acres of watershed that is essentially funneling towards the low point of the site, which is at the curve of the park road, and it's really got nowhere else to go. So what's happening is there's a retention situation that's essentially going on. That water's sitting there, it's percolating into the ground. Based on the geotechnical report by Geodesign, there's a gravelly sandy layer that's probably about 4 feet down, and then that band goes from about 4 feet thick to about 10 feet thick. And that's kind of where the groundwater during their explorations were last year. And as everybody knows, in the last year, we've received probably about 65 inches of rain. And to date, it's almost about another 7. So we're in a very saturated condition. So the undulations of the groundwater on top of the newly, scarified site, because now you've stripped the topsoil, so there's no longer kind of that barrier between water to it's infiltrating immediately. It's getting soaked right in, so it's going right into the gravelly sandy layer. Specifically, I think right where the standing water is located, that's not exactly a groundwater condition. I think that's more the excavation for the temporary sediment trap is also in conjunction with compacted material that's kind of holding the water from getting to that gravelly sandy layer. So there's kind of multitudes of things going on. It could be a high water table on top of already getting the water that's located and surcharging into that area, because that's kind of what everything wants to do today. On top of, there was an investigation by Newfield, and it was information that was given to me during our meeting the other day, which is the existing building actually discharges to an underground infiltration system. We don't necessarily know what kind of system that is, but the idea is it's already kind of happening today, but there's already a kind of an existing infiltration system that's already percolating that stormwater into the ground, assisting, and essentially from a stormwater management perspective, I'm like, yeah, that's great. But from a constructability perspective, it's the kind of the chess game trying to figure out how you're going to mitigate the groundwater conditions when putting the footings in. So I kind of summarize in my report my assumptions that I'm making. What we talked about on site, along with the recommendation to bring Geodesign in to assist Newfield in how to mitigate the storm or the groundwater conditions, because it's naturally how the site works today, and that's not going to change. Post condition, we're still utilizing that gravelly sandy layer to make sure that stormwater is mitigated and infiltrating into that sandy layer. So it's really just a mitigation for the constructability to put the building in at this point in time. But hopefully, in the future, we don't necessarily have this same rainy condition that we have in the last year. You know, it was the third wettest year on record. And I'm paying for it on several other projects because stormwater is always fun. That's kind of it in a nutshell. One thing I did want to touch on is, so Mather and Newfield, they're using well points to kind of dewater the area. I think in conjunction with the dewatering, because we were also trying to make sure that the temporary sediment trap is actually allowing sediments to settle out and not having the pump pull in sediments and dump them right out, it might make a lot of sense for somewhat of a trench of stone to kind of break the two areas. That way you're kind of mitigating one with your dewatering and allowing for, because I'm sure they probably have either stone around it and maybe a geofabric around it to help stop it from tracing sediments in. But putting that around the, or I guess trenching around the temporary sediment trap would allow for that kind of disconnect. But I would also allow for geodesign to kind of weigh in and think if that's even a viable idea. I think it is, but.
What are these pictures? Where are we looking at?
Oh, so these are just my photo log of, my site walk itself. The top one is the overflow basin. So on the north side of the Park Road, that's kind of, so what happens is, think of it like a glorified teapot. So we're filling up the basin on one side, and then slowly on the other side, it's just little spits when it gets too high and too many larger event storms. So everything's designed from the 2 through the 100-year storms to essentially never overtop the road itself and only allow for what was previously spitting out. Because existing today, there's a little pipe that goes underneath the road, and when the existing depression fills with water, it would fill up with water and then little spit out then. I think maybe even John Harriman was the original designer, and that's why he knew so much about it. But we're kind of emulating that same design pattern today. So moving down, this is adjacent to the Park Road. So if you were looking at the Park Road, it'd be on the right side. You're looking north from the construction entrance. This is essentially where the temporary sediment trap is kind of laid, which that pipe connects the top one to the bottom one. So water is hydraulically connected between the two, as well as you can kind of see there's a little bit of like a light sort of situation going on over here because it's trying to emphasize the well point that's there. So there's a well point that's there, which is essentially just a cylindrical pipe plastered into the ground, stone, hopefully fabric around it, pump at the bottom, and then pumping it right out to make sure that you're dewatering that area that you're going to be working in. So I would expect multiple of these kind of strategically around the building footprint to dewater, and then placing of structural fill. Once you get to the structural fill portion, that's highly compacted material. Water should not be moving into that material as long as it's compacted to at least 95%. So that's the hope, that's the goal. So that's kind of where I think things are going.
I have questions.
I have answers.
So you did an assessment March recently.
Yes.
When did
Friday.
you do the first one to determine like the lay of the land?
So when I walked around the site the first time, 2022? November 2022, I want to say.
So
It was myself, a woman who no longer works with us, Abby Schaefer, and John Harriman looking at the low point located here. So there's an outfall from the parking lot that goes originally to here, which is also shown in these because I think it's now disconnected and rerouted. And at that time, it was it's November, so there really wasn't much in the terms of moisture in 2022. So it really didn't seem like it was highly saturated at that time. And then subsequently to that, when Geodesign did their geotechnical borings, which is essentially maybe about 75 feet away from where the discharge is, I think they explored groundwater at elevation 138. I can double check.
So those borings were done,
Yeah. Those
What-
borings were done
like
in
September?
January 2023.
really?
Yes, because the report came out in February 6th, 2023.
So you did the boring, and then that was the last thing you guys did, right? Everything
Yeah,
is
field-wise. Otherwise,
the
I
all,
mean, I had been there for like right before
Yeah.
like one of the planning and zoning meetings.
Yeah,
Just so I
yeah.
could be like, yeah, I know exactly
but
where
your
I'm talking
entire water call it mitigation plan was
Yes.
based off the borings from January last year.
Yes.
So after we got all that rain last year,
Yeah.
there was no thought to like redo them or anything.
So we necessarily wouldn't look at redoing them because it's kind of an outlier condition.
Okay.
So even though it's, last year, 2023, was the wettest probably we'll ever see, hopefully, it's not really kind of what we would do because, we've already gotten regulatory approval. So John Harriman, the city or the town engineer's already signed off on the design. Now, if there was a concern, it would go back to that same conversation of, we could do it for you if you asked, and we could provide you a proposal to look at it again because of the current condition. But on the side of, it's not necessarily a
Standard thing that's done.
well, no, not even that. I would say that the ordinary high water of the groundwater is
Yeah.
it's going to fluctuate.
Yeah, yeah.
Rainwater,
Right.
that's just how it works.
So right now, what Perkins is asking is to support construction.
So
Like, what
I
exactly
work
are we asking you to
for-
do?
So I work for SLR. I have a full contract with you. I'm willing to do whatever you need.
But you work for like SLR
Yes,
sub of
I'm
Perkins.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Geodesign is the geotechnical engineer.
Okay. So what?
Separate engineers.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
Two different companies.
two different companies.
So
I handle stormwater. They handle everything underground.
gotcha. So what are
Or
we
soil.
asking them to do?
We're asking them for a recommendation on how to assist mitigating the groundwater, as well as I think just general CA, so construction.
So all this
administration.
extra groundwater that we've gotten because of all the rain over the past year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that could lead to additional things that have to get done that were not unplanned for, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah,
Like if they say we need to put a stone moat all around the whole site, whatever, like, I'm just saying what could they tell us that we would need to do, that we should be planning for?
Right, so there's currently an RFI that they've discovered some unsuitable soils in the footprint that may need to be removed, or they might be able to be reused elsewhere on the site.
What's unsuitable, like mud?
It's like organic.
Yeah,
material.
highly organic material, so roots, so specifically, oh, it's silty clay? Okay.
Silty clay?
I was thinking it was more because of the clearing, you have the roots from the clearing, okay, no, that makes sense. Gotcha. So, yeah, you don't want to found anything on silty clay, is essentially what. Correct.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Did you keep speaking in the microphone?
I was just saying, if it's in silty clay, you could have settling, and that's why it's quote unquote unsuitable.
Yep.
Gotcha. And would the clay be of most concern near the foundation?
Yeah, specifically below the foundation.
And when the borings were done, they weren't done near where the foundation would be?
I think the borings were all over the building.
Yeah, they're done throughout the site.
And they didn't find the clay when they did the borings?
They're not. They,
They did find it.
yeah.
It was a striation, and within that striation, as
Yeah,
Rock was
it
saying,
bloomed.
there's variations in depth of that.
Yeah.
And within the report that I read here,
Yep.
it was part of the specifications. We were assuming that striation was about 2 feet. And what we're finding right now is that in some of these locations, we're up 3 to 4, because there's pockets where the sandy gravel that he was describing would allow for the water to move.
Gravelly sand.
Gravelly sand, there you go. And there's depressions in it, or striations within that are pushing more silt clay.
So the borings that they took just happened to not hit one of those areas where you had the deeper...
Well, so you got to think of it in the context of the boring. A boring is 6 inches in diameter. I know they're scattered about, but when you really think about the natural topography below grade and it's undulating and following the contours, what he's describing is there's kind of an assumption that's made throughout the specification that says, hey, it's going to be 2 feet throughout, but now it's 3 feet. So what I would assume is the delta is the 1 foot that they're looking for extra removal. Am I kind of piecing the puzzle together? Got it. That's really what they're talking about. There's already 2 feet that's already taken into account. It's that extra foot and a half, depending upon where they're located.
So I think that's more.
Oh, yeah, go
So-
ahead.
Jessica?
Yeah, so at this point on the site, and I was gonna give you it during my update, but we've already stripped probably about 95% of the topsoil that's there. We've removed that 2 feet that was noted in the geotech report.
Yeah.
And where we're at is quote-unquote baseline for us right now, because that's where we're gonna start bringing up the structural fill from.
Yeah.
And then when we hit that elevation where the structural fill is where it's supposed to be, at that point, we dig down for the foundations and the piers for the columns.
Okay.
And what we're getting into right now is the differentiation between where we thought we were going to be in material that we would be able to bear on, and where this striation and where the variation is occurring.
Okay.
So do we need to do more boring samples?
I
Down
don't
at-
believe so.
I don't think you would need to.
I don't believe
Because
so.
really, it's going to come down to a geotechnical recommendation on what to do with the material. And once you get geodesign under CA, they're more than likely going to tell them to just take it out because it's not you shouldn't be bearing on it. And then everything would have to be tracked, I assume, on a time and materials basis. And then they would do a ticket that says, hey, it's going to be X amount extra because it's not part of their bid.
Let's be clear here, though. Within the bid for the site work package and within the GMP, you already own a certain amount of cubic yards of unsuitable soil. It's 300 yards in mass excavation, and it's 200 yards within trench excavation. So you have an allotment of 500 yards that if we do hit these unsuitable soils, we can go ahead and take them out under that allowance, and it's already covered. It would just be the delta of what's over and above that. And the reason why we asked the RFI to the design team was that we wanted to establish those parameters on what and how far the extent of that removal of those unsuitable soils would look like. Like if we're inside of the footprint and the foundation of the building, and say we have cover of 4 feet over these unsuitables at a slab on grade, are we really going to chase it down to pull out those unsuitables, or can we accept that and pour over it? And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Gotcha.
And in the RFI response, we tried to survey the locations that were identified by the independent tester. And I guess what I'm trying to drive at with Joe and Rock and D. Simone and anybody else is, we don't want to have to wholesale those materials out of there, because I don't want to go through all of your allowance. I don't know what's going to be seen in the far west side of the building where these fingers of the building come out.
Right.
We had no borings over there other than the one
Yeah.
that he was just talking about. And that's where I foresee a lot of the unsuitable soils coming from, because it's so saturated in that area and it's a low spot within the property. So what I want to try and do is pinpoint those locations of unsuitables just to pier locations or foundation locations, pull the material out, and then replace it with the structural fill that we're already bringing in right now. So
What's structural fill made out of?
structural
Gravel.
Yeah, it's
Just gravel?
It's a
Well,
it's a gravel and sand mix.
Yeah, correct. That way they interlock.
Gotcha.
So it creates a nice hard structural base. And to that token, I know we haven't responded officially to the RFI. At least I haven't, because it's not really my realm. But part of your CA, I would suggest test pits. Maybe 2 or 3 test pits in the fingers to verify the depth of the, because that's a lot easier than a boring. Bring a boring machine, it's more of a pain in the butt. But doing a test pit, you already have the equipment out there. So you can do 4-foot test pit, figure out what the soil are in probably 4 or 5 locations, take half a day. And I don't think that cost for geodesign would be too unbearable, and then provide you with a recommendation on what to do with the material. Because I think from when they originally did the borings, this was all wooded, so they couldn't bring a machine in there. So that's kind of why.
I agree with that, with doing test pits. But prior to doing that, I'd like to see geodesign come out, because within the actual area of the footprint for A and B, you can see the striations where we furrowed through to create channels for the water.
Yeah, there's a diversion
So you
swale.
might be able to see it right there.
Yeah, you can kind of see the maybe it's about 8 inches or so, and then dark color, so very topsoily, and then you see like a light brown. That's where you notice the difference in striations as you're going down.
Absolutely, and that's what we're looking for. We have that almost dark, almost black material, and that's silty.
It's very
clay,
organic.
Silty clay, and then right below that, when we hit that layer that he's talking about, where it's that brown, sandy stuff, we know that we've hit where we're supposed to be.
And that's the good stuff.
Yes, exactly.
But once again, just on the record, just utilities. I'm not anything else, even though I play it on TV.
So I have a question. Who does the compaction testing? Because Geodesign's proposal said that they'll perform compaction testing on soils placed under footings and slabs if requested.
No, so you have a third-party testing, Tri-State. So I don't necessarily think that's.
So they're not going to. We don't need to request them to.
No, actually, we had Tri-State out on site today doing compaction testing on the gravel the structural fill that we've been bringing in.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I would just say that part of their review would be to get those reports and to make sure that they meet criteria.
Okay.
So we've got basically two issues.
Yes.
The high water line, which requires dewatering, and then the unsuitable soils. So for the high water line, are we at risk of having to put in like a waterproof barrier underneath our slabs?
It's already there.
So I think you were already doing it, right?
We already have it.
Yeah, and there's also a footing drain around the building. I don't think the groundwater is high enough to constitute a.
If I'm not mistaken, Joe, there's bituminous damp proofing on the foundation too, isn't it? I know that it is in certain locations.
No, at the elevator pit, yeah, but
I'm not sure if it's all the way
on
through.
this project, yeah.
Rather than a traditional vapor barrier, we've got an actual radon barrier, which is much thicker than your typical vapor barrier. So that's continuous across the slab on grade as it is. And again, our concern now is getting down deep enough in that good material to put our footings in, which happens to be wet right now. We don't have a concern that your groundwater line is going to break through the surface and become a problem for our finished floor.
Yeah, because even from a topography standpoint, so the low point on the site is 142. The high point on the road is 143.42, I think. Don't quote me on that one. And the finished floor is 146.5, if I recall. So water, if it starts to seep up, it'd go over the road before it goes to the building.
Isn't that why we have the basin that we're building in and have a fence around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
And the underground detention system.
Yeah.
So none of that's in place at this point.
Right, but
So-
it will account for everything that
Yes.
we're seeing right now.
Correct.
Because
So-
this isn't the 100-year flood stage.
So while it doesn't necessarily account for the current high groundwater, it accounted for the high ground or the groundwater elevation based on the geotechnical report by Geodesign at the time.
The design that's going to be in place.
Yes, correct.
So when that's in place, we're not going to have the problem that we have today.
They're really unrelated.
Yeah.
I mean, they're two sides of the same coin. You've got
Correct.
groundwater and you've got stormwater.
Yep.
Yep.
So the basin and the underground storage system are meant to take the surge of stormwater during an event. Right now, the bottom of the pond and some of that underground detention would likely have wet feet because the groundwater is up higher than it was at the time
Correct.
of the borings.
Yep.
So in essence, it decreases your available storage, so a little bit more water is going to go down the pipe and off-site.
Correct.
Okay.
But again, your building is not at risk. It's a matter of balancing the water levels in order for us to get out of the ground with the foundations.
Yep.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, right now, we've eliminated the existing storage during construction. And because
I don't know if
of
it's
the
been
wooded area
disconnected.
and we're building there and, or is
Well,
that-
so-
is that not accurate?
So there's a existing discharge
Mhm.
that takes the parking lot that they're rerouting to basically mimic what's currently there. That way they can work in that area because there's a building going on top of it. But I don't think you've disconnected what would be considered the underground infiltration system for the building,
We've intercepted it, and now we are
rerouting it to that discharge pipe.
We're piping it. Yeah, we're pumping it directly over.
Okay.
Yep.
And none of the basin is built at this point.
Absolutely.
Well, some of it, but
The first well point that we put in is at the outlet of the new basin. And now we have a second well point too that we've set up in the courtyard of the building right now. And we're actually looking to go, we're investigating where the best location will be on the north side of the B building. We're trying to get 3 in that area right now where all the trees were. And we're pumping 24/7 right now. We have the permission of the farmer in the field next door to dump onto his land into a culvert that he has. And
He's very nice.
that's
He's like very nice.
that's the best that we can do at this moment in time. And just to put this into perspective a little bit more, on January 5th of 2023, in the location within the A building, close to the Main Street entry there, oops, sorry, they found wet samples at 138, elevation 138. And as of yesterday, we were watching water perking at about 141.7. So that just tells you how much higher it was, which is almost 3.75 feet.
Yeah. Which, if you, in the grand scheme of things, when you really think about it, I think the week before I made the investigation, there was 3 days of rain, which is about 4 inches of rainfall. Over 20 acres is like 300,000 cubic feet. Is that math?
It's huge.
I think
It's huge.
that seems like a lot, and I think I'm right. Let me double check that. I'm good at math, but I ain't that good at math.
Yeah, I don't do math in public.
Let me check.
Or spell complicated words. All right, I mean, does anyone have any other questions on this stuff?
Oh, all right.
Ken,
Sure.
do you have any other questions?
300,000.
Oh. All right, so I'll take a motion to approve the proposal. How much was the amount for? again?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have
it's
it?
two different things.
You're talking-
Isn't that that?
No,
No, this is talking about
This
the
is a field
wells.
report.
field report.
I thought we were trying to get the geotech quote going.
No, I'm
we are.
kind of
We
doing
are.
that
We are.
in,
Isn't it tied together?
I hope so.
Sort of.
It's a lead-in.
They're,
Okay.
Yeah.
they're both dealing with water.
Are they
and soil.
Are we talking two
We're
different
talking
things?
two
then?
different things.
Yeah.
In the last,
3.
in the last few pages of the packet that I handed out for you tonight, is a proposal letter from Perkins Eastman, has a cover letter to the proposal from Geo Design, who is the geotechnical engineer of record. The proposal is for an allowance for time and material by Geo Design of $7,500, with the markup by Perkins Eastman at 15% or $1,125, to create a new line item worth $8,625. That would get Geo Design to come out and do field work, and apparently also to do construction administration for geotechnical. So submittals, RFIs.
Now I'm very confused. I thought we needed design work to deal with this water issue.
So technically, so design work and construction administration at this point are technically intertwined.
Yeah.
So in order for geodesign, for them to provide a recommendation, they have to do field investigations, which alludes to the test pits I somewhat told you to do, but not told you to do. That's really what their role would be. It's not a design, it's a recommendation based upon the current construction conditions.
So satisfy Connecticut State Building Code requirements for special inspections. So the idea is that, what, are we still talking about the dirt and not having the right dirt?
Yes, that would include that as their
Okay.
investigations and observations in the site.
So making sure
In the
that
field
the
for that.
building's gonna be put on top of the right soil combination, whatever you wanna call it, composition.
Yep.
Said differently, if there weren't issues, if the silty soil was only 2 feet as expected, and if there wasn't a lake of water, would we have this in front of us today, this proposal? Would geodesign be engaged?
That's a great question.
Probably not.
Well, when you loop in as the scope of what this T&M is going to cover to be RFIs and submittals, which is frankly normal CA stuff, there would be at least a portion of this that would have to be approved.
Yeah, they've already reviewed one submittal and returned it prior to this, so.
That's another one of those mushrooms that grew out of the contract that Rosanna was talking about. There was an exclusion in the contract as constructed that said that the geotech basically did the field work prior to design, and anything after that was going to be TBD. So here we are in TBD land.
Joe, can I ask a question about that? Every project I've ever worked on, there's always questions to the geotech engineer during construction. So why would that have been excluded?
I am not sure why it's excluded, but it is, so I don't have an answer for that.
And for the record, that exclusion was not noted in Perkins' actual proposal. It's something that cropped up in the contract. So the item before you today is an ad service request for $8,625 in order to get the geotech to do construction administration services inclusive of field visits.
Why isn't this a change order?
From a timeliness standpoint, we wanted to capture it now and get them out here rather than convene a special change order committee meeting.
I mean, it's still gonna have to go in front of the town, doesn't it?
Ultimately, the recommendations of the change order committee, although they can initiate work, they come back to you to ratify for the record.
I know, but you have Herman who actually looks at this stuff first.
And we can have a conversation with John. And again, based on timeliness, we didn't want to miss the opportunity to get it approved tonight. It's something that was just exposed.
So what is this TBD on page 2 supposed to mean then? Construction observation and testing, $1,600 a day, up to 8 hours on site.
So they don't know how many times they're going to be called out to the site. It could be once, it could be 5. So that's why it's an allowance. So if they only come once and they have to review one submittal and one RFI, then they might not expend the entire 7,500.
So the TBD is part of the 7,500, you're saying?
Correct.
We're approving up to 7,500?
Yes. And if we hit that limit when we get close to it, we'll notify you prior to that.
But this still ties back to giving us recommendations on what soil perimeter we need to remove and what to do with the water lake?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe,
Jessica, you had a question?
Sorry, the it doesn't read that it's not to exceed maybe somewhere. it is.
Allowance.
I think it's in the text.
That's the allowances.
Below it.
This is the table I'm looking at. So it might be in the text. It says
And I
will
think
not
I had
exceed
it
the
in
above
our
estimate
portion
without
of the
obtaining
proposal.
approval, but it's got a line item for 7,500 and then a TBD
just-
line item that's 1,600 a day or 950 per half day.
Yeah, the standard fee schedule doesn't seem to align with the TBD.
Yeah, it looks like it's in addition to.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is an hourly fee?
It would be billed hourly, yes. As they use it.
Yeah, is there?
Yeah, but the construction observation and testing's a charge per day.
They got to reopen.
Includes travel time on any oversight to be.
I agree with the comments that you're making, that TBD does stand out prominently. I think the baseline is that we're approving 7,500 to Geodesign. In theory, it doesn't matter what they use it for, as long as they stay within that allowance. But I agree that the way Geodesign's document is written, for general CA, they want $7,500. For coming out in the field, that would be above and beyond the $7,500
So the $7,500 is broken down in by this fee schedule in
by
the
the
back.
fee schedule, right. But again, if they don't have that many submittals to review or other things to deal with under that 75, it may cover field visits as well.
When I spoke to them, that's what they indicated to me, so.
Okay, so,
So
If we need them to clarify it, we could reissue.
it's almost like you just need to strike out the TBD and just
Okay.
put the 7,500 on there.
Okay.
That way we know there's no like additional.
Not
I
to
just,
exceed.
I'm a little gun shy, and I feel like we need to be reading things and making sure that we understand them after the uncoverings that we've had. Like,
Yeah.
I get how they thought, but if you read this, that's not how it reads.
Yeah.
So I'll have them revise it to make it clearer.
so we can revise the backup. The operable document would be Perkins Eastman's proposal, which is requesting an allowance of $7,500. If you don't spend it, you get it back. If you need more, they'll come back to us again. But at least we can get the ball rolling by approving a not to exceed for T&M.
Yeah, and from a construction standpoint, if we don't have a geotech out on site, we're gonna run into a situation where there may be potential schedule impacts.
When do you need them? Tomorrow?
Absolutely. I don't want you guys to feel like you're under the gun.
I mean, could we approve it by saying 7,500 limit across all services?
7,500 allowance for Geodesign. Whichever
Inclusive of everything in here.
Whichever flavor of service that gets billed to it, it's still an allowance of $7,500. And again, if they need more, they'll come back. If they don't use it, you'll get it back.
Or you won't spend it technically.
Hmm?
Or you won't spend it technically.
Right, you won't spend it. Right. It's not saved, it's unspent.
Correct.
Right.
I'm comfortable with what Jack's saying.
Yeah.
No, they're okay.
The reason why I'm putting brevity on it is because right now we have a great majority of that area, that field, under control as far as how wet it is and the fact that we can actually establish bringing in structural fill. I'm worried that we're going to get another 2-3 day rain event, and then everything that we've been trying to do, we're going to be starting over at square one again. So,
Well, good thing is you're only getting snow on Saturday.
Yeah,
So
it's
we'll-
snowing in my house right now.
I'm hoping.
We'll freeze over and you can just shovel it out of the way.
The other point of that is, as soon as we get out of the ground with the foundation, we're going to not be looking at this as much anymore. So,
At soil?
at soil, at
Dirt.
all that stuff. So, the sooner we can get out and we're looking to actually start foundations mid-April, within the next 3 weeks probably here. As soon as we start that process and we've gotten it identified where these quote-unquote unsuitable materials are, and we've gotten the water table to a point where we can actually do the work, like I said, you're gonna start seeing these things dissipate, and we're not gonna be talking about them anymore.
Yeah.
But right now is absolutely the time that we need to be doing this.
I'm okay with this. Again, I would cross out the TBD off of this. It'd be good if somewhere on here it just says total to not exceed 7,500. in nice bold font.
Well, to be fair, it does say we will not exceed the allowance amount without your authorization, so it- in
Yeah,
the
but
double,
the-
in the double asterisk. But yeah, if they can revise this, I think we'd be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I would just, if they take out the TBD, so no, there's no other amount that is part of the estimate, then I think we're okay.
Will do.
Okay, so, can we vote on this now, Jack? Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the geo-design quote with
You're
the,
approving the Perkins Eastman ad service
Perkins.
request in the amount of $8,625.
thank you, that would Jack, with, I want to make sure we put in there that we are not exceeding the
This
7,500.
is an allowance of $7,500 for geodesign plus 15% markup. And we've asked that the backup from geodesign be revised.
That, all of that, what he just said. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Anyone abstaining? Motion carries. All right. Did you have something else, Joe? Okay. All right. Moving right along. Construction update.
Yeah, so in open forum here, I just want to state this to you folks. I take the financials very serious on these projects. I treat the money as if it's my own money, and I'm not going to squander the $8,600 that you just approved. It's not going to happen.
Thank you.
They're going to be accountable for it. We're going to make sure that every penny is there, so.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate
Yep,
that.
and that goes all the way down the line, all your allowances, everything, so. I've given you pretty much a clear indication of where we are through this whole discussion, but I guess I'll give you a synopsis. So, once again, 95% cleared with the topsoil. That was our first process. Right now, we're bringing in processed stone to establish a service corridor around the footprint of the building so that we can get trucks from one side to the other when we start doing these foundations and erecting steel and doing things of that nature. In addition to that, we've been rolling for 2 straight days, bringing in structural fill and compacting, as we were talking about before, with the 95% compaction. Tri-State Material has been on site doing that testing. We've been gathering the reports from that. We haven't had any failures yet, so things are looking very good. We've established 2 well points. We're looking to establish a 3rd for water control. We have rebar being delivered for the week of 4/8. And we have our concrete contractor actually scheduled to start the week of 4/15.
To start pouring concrete?
Start forming, yeah. Yep, which means that
Nice.
prior to that, we'll have the excavations done for the footings, so.
And school's out the week of the 8th. Oh, man, just missed it by 1 week.
Yeah, so right now, for all intents and purposes, we're tracking right where we want to be.
So when you pour concrete, there's going to be like a train of trucks that's going to come through?
Not for foundation walls, that's
No.
more of a slab on grade kind of deal.
Okay. So we don't do work about that right now.
No, you're gonna have small batches.
Small batches.
Yeah, you make it a handful of trucks just to pour one section of footing.
Okay.
Another handful to pour one section of wall. When you get into the slabs on grade and the slabs on deck,
Yeah.
that's when you start seeing 8 of them lined up in a row.
Okay.
Because
When that
once-
does happen, we just need some,
Abs-
heads up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Other than that, we have started some subsurface piping for your utilities and whatnot. On the back side, on the east side of the building, we've brought around the duct bank already for the new primary service. That way we were out of the area where we were stockpiling the topsoil. And at this point in time, all utility companies, all our consultants, all of our contractors are all playing nice in the sand. And
That's good.
I feel like we're doing an all right job right now. And Ron and I are processing the first quote-unquote construction wreck right now, which will just be bond costs, insurance costs, some submittals, background checks, stuff like that, all the upfront costs. A couple of those contractors have gotten me everything that they need, so Ron and I are working through that right now so we can loosen up some money and keep those gears greased, so.
Okay.
I have a question too, sorry. Right before they pour the footings, is there another compaction test right where they put that? It's just kind of a construction question. I mean, how does that work?
When we hit the bottom of footing, it's quote-unquote virgin material. At that point, there would be gravel on top of that. I'm not aware of any.
So they don't
anything
test that, right?
specific
Okay.
for that.
I'm
no.
just curious how it works, that's all, okay.
No, the idea is to either get to imported compacted
Okay,
or virgin non-touched.
I see.
That's
Okay.
the idea.
Thanks.
I had a follow-up question. I think it was last week. I had to play back because I wasn't here last week, where they took, I'm going to use the wrong term, contaminated, was it contaminated soil or contaminated, what we had, I don't know, whatever we had that needed to be removed.
It's
The dirty dirt.
Dirty dirt,
And
yeah.
then
Polluted soil,
you guys
risk-
had to then make sure you got it all, take a margin, and make sure you got it all. And that, I think that,
Yeah, they're supposed to do some tests to make
Yeah,
sure
they-
that the boundaries were
Yes,
clean.
they call those grave samples, which are from the walls of the excavation as well as the bottom.
Yeah,
All those came back clean.
okay.
We're waiting on the profile for that soil. Actually, in one of SLR's photos, you could see the poly-tarped
yeah.
pile there right next to that's the contaminated stuff. And until we get the profile back from Pinoni, which is we're hoping to get it within the next couple of days here, we can't take that off of site, but it is covered, prepared, ready to go, and that is the extent of that soil at this point
So
in
they
time.
need to test it to see like where they're gonna put it, where you're gonna send it off to?
Yeah, I think there was a place, it's like Fish Kill, something like that up in Massachusetts that we're
Okay.
looking to send it to.
Okay.
And we're just waiting to get that profile so that the profile matches up with the characteristics in which they'll take the soil.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. It's like they could put it for those like Mount Trashmores, like just dumping it out of the trash. All right. Where are we now? Construction. So, anything else on construction?
Not unless any of you have questions.
I don't think so. No. Anyone else have questions? Okay. All right. Moving on. Arcadis.
All right, good evening. March 20th already. Hard to believe. The second day of spring. Didn't quite feel like it.
Nope.
As we look for the agenda for our report tonight, project look ahead, some site photos, finances, invoices for approval, and we already had an ad service for Perkins in the mix tonight, so we'll have another piece to go. We can process them together. For project updates, we're still processing the site as you just heard from Newfield, getting ready for foundations and slabs. Bioretention basin, lay-down areas, etc. You've all gotten a copy of this. We don't need to read it line by line. Critical items, none at this point. That the report was created, but we know now that we do have the geotech investigation that needs to proceed. As far as project look ahead, again, your handout is handier than the screen. And this came from you, Ron. Yeah. So you got any questions, we can have Ron provide an update.
Well, with the 2-week look ahead, that was the 2-week look ahead by Newfield, and I believe Chris has pretty much hit everything on the schedule where we are and what have you. So the next page. And again, Chris was talking about the activities in March and April, and again, the big thing is getting the unsuitables and what have you straightened out. And then this is just a few good things that are going on. Well, a lot of good things are going on the site.
Can I
but-
just pause one quick, just, when you talk about A and B, foundations A and B, what do you mean by A and B?
Sections A and B, the way that they were set up on the schedule.
Yeah, so, the way that your drawings are broken out. Sorry, Mike?
That admin area on the bottom left would be A, and then you go up to B, and clockwise C and D.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're doing the front of the building.
Actually, we're starting in B. The only reason
That's the right front of the building though, right?
it's the left back. Yeah, it's the two-story.
Oh, A, B, C, okay, I was going the other way around.
And we're starting at B because it is two stories, and we want to have enough time to do what we got to over there.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So then, the site safety, Newfield is pushing that everywhere they go. So they have these QR codes that everybody comes in, they log in, log out, daily reports, what have you. So there's a lot of useful electronic information. And maybe Chris, if anything you want to elaborate on that.
We use a program called Jotform, which allows these guys to actually do their daily reports right on their phone or their tablet and send them directly to us. It eliminates any lag in that because we require that at certain times every day, and we find that we get better response out of our contractors by doing that. So it's actually a newer technology that we're using, and it's working out really well, actually.
Oh, good.
Just general curiosity, do you have, in your safety program, do you have like near hit reporting, so you don't get to a point where you've eventually got incidents that are happening to folks?
Absolutely, and on your project, we've actually partnered with Con OSHA. First time that they're coming out is 419, and we're going to have probably periodic quarterly visits with Con OSHA. We find that as Newfield Construction, we've done this before. I'm just coming off of New London High School, where we partnered with Con OSHA on that one. We find that when we get them in there, there's a lot. We are able to get a lot of those near miss incidents out of the way, so that we don't have problems. And we also find that it's helpful for our contractors to have Con OSHA there, as opposed to having Fed OSHA, because Con OSHA can't impose fines. They can tell you what's wrong, but the second you get Fed OSHA involved, then there's fines involved. So it's kind of like a little stopgap between the two. And not only that, but Newfield has a third-party safety officer, as well as all of our contracts have safety officers that are required to be on site as well.
Okay, good to know. It sounds like Con OSHA is a little bit, helps with some of the proactive.
Yeah, and that's something that's not required, but we electively do that we invite them to our sites.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
And then the second photo over on the right is the security fencing that they've erected to separate the construction activities and the school. And this is over in that northeast corner, adjacent to the stockpile area, and that's one of the crosswalks that would go from the school out to the ball field, and there are a set of double gates that are there. So in the event that they had to evacuate or go out to the fields, that the gates would be opened, and the traffic would be stopped at that point. And they have a few of those type of gates. Then our famous water, the sump pumps. This is the relocation down on Herbert Water, down at the corner that we've talked about this afternoon. And then the middle one is just the stripping operation and what have you that's ongoing. And the last one is the drains for the intercepting the existing site drainage out to the new bio basin, what have you. So they've exposed that, and they've actually put dog houses, and they're working on structures now. So
Did you say dog houses? What did they say?
yeah, it's a structure that they drop over.
How long were you
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
but again, back with Chris's statement on the site safety. I know when I've been out there, we sign in and what have you, so that they know we're here. But as you see equipment, as if you're there, the equipment operators actually stop, make eye contact, so they're not just like a bull in a china shop out there, so that's good.
Works better when you turn it on. Not only are you getting a project manager in Ron, but Ron is one of our corporate safety people as well, so.
Oh, nice.
Added value. Looking at financial reports, per usual, status of our budgets. Paid to date, about $2.7 million on the middle school, just over $200,000 towards central admin so far. We've got, between contingencies and unbought line items in the budget, we've got almost $9 million yet to commit on the middle school, and just over $900,000 to commit on central admin. The adjustments this past month, the only adjustments you'll see are presently to the architectural services line. As far as owner contingencies, Emily recaps what we've transferred in and out of contingencies. We've got presently, through the January 31st reporting, we had $3.1 million in owner's contingency on the middle school and about $177,000 on central admin. Again, the highlighted item, the transfer on the middle school was $18,000 towards the soils monitoring that was attributable to the middle school. Similar PO increase to Perkins for a slice of that cost over to the central admin budget. Invoices tonight, we have Arcadis's monthly billing, split between middle school and central admin, totaling $16,350. We have requisition number 11 from Newfield. Middle school charge, $465,519. Central admin charge, $22,744.35. And architectural services for Perkins, requisition number 14. $26,733.73 to the middle school, $2,559 towards central admin. The total in invoices being presented tonight is $533,906.08. We ask your approval.
And the construction services includes all of Newfield's subs, right? That's like everything that's
Staffing
happening.
and work in place, yes. Yeah. Using bonds and whatnot, and that's first requisition.
Should we be seeing a breakdown of that or no?
It was 100 and some odd pages. You've all gotten it electronically in the packet that went out.
Oh. I obviously didn't look at it.
Yeah,
Did you send that out this week with the?
that was
yeah.
part of the, Lisa, did that go out to all members, what Emily sent over? Let me see, it might, is that the last page?
Just look real quick.
That's the last page. If the full I think the invoice section of the report itself was 107 pages or something like that, so. That's what I
Emily
thought.
sent it out?
Well,
to
so all you got was the condensed version?
Yeah, the condensed version.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I'll make sure that the long version goes out to be distributed to all the members, as well as the short version for the screen.
I'll concur with the bulk of our cost was our bond values.
What does that mean?
The performance and payment bonds for the various trades,
Yeah, okay.
bonds and
That's
insurance.
expected.
It's just ours.
Yours?
Just ours.
Just yours.
The next one will be for trade.
Yeah, here's the summary.
And I don't believe it will be all of it for the bond cost.
Base contract construction phase was 374,000. Closeout phase, oh, that's remaining, sorry, wrong column. Earned 88,000. I don't know, these numbers are not. Monthly invoice summary. Here it says total contract earned 216. I don't know, they're not matching. I don't know what I'm looking at here. This is different than so there's 64 pages of invoices, so I'm going to guess all these add up to it. But the summary sheet doesn't look like it's adding up to it, unless this is not a summary sheet. Page 2 of the file that Emily sent out. Is that the summary sheet?
We've got the
Am I looking in the...
page 2 of 64, that's the cover sheet for Arcadis's invoice. Then there's Arcadis's invoice. Following that, on
Arcade.
page...
Oh, that's Arcade. That's not the summary. Is there a summary page of...
Page 5 of 64 is the cover for...
It's
Which one is
Arcadis.
this? This is the middle school requisition, is page 5 of 64. Totaling $466,519. Pages 5 and 6 are the breakdowns for the middle school. I'm sorry. Through page 7 of...
All right, so the biggest
64.
one is CM Performance and Payment Bond for $375. That's where the majority it is.
Yeah.
Jack, can you just double check I think you just said 466,519?
465.
Okay. All right, then I might have heard wrong.
Let me scroll back.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh.
Page 5 does say 466.
465 says 466. Ooh, I get to pick on Emily tomorrow. She made a mistake on the cover sheet. So 466,519.
Okay.
Not 465.
466,519 is the approved.
Attention to detail.
So, I'm sorry, I'm slow. What's the payment bond again? What is that covering? What is that?
That covers Newfield's performance and payment bond on the job.
Just,
So payment bond means if they don't pay somebody when you've paid them, then that insurance kicks in and covers the difference.
okay,
So keeps them,
Gotcha.
keeps you protected if they do something inappropriate with the money.
gotcha.
You're covered.
Okay.
And then scrolling through that, let me get to the cover sheet for...
Did everyone get the copy of that?
I don't think so.
I will forward it.
So we'll blame Rosanna. She got it and she didn't share.
When did it come out? Just so I can check.
It came out last night. But I will forward it to everyone.
We'll
Right
make
now.
sure that the transmitting email is more conspicuous next time.
And I just forwarded to what I had to everyone's email. You should have got it, that's all.
Yeah, Lisa sent it out too.
Lisa, if there's something you send me, I can pull it up. I have everything up there. Is it something I can pull up? Wait. No, okay.
And verifying the number for...
Well, you forwarded
central-
to IT, Lisa. Yeah.
Do you want to, do you want Matt to put it?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. Just, you could let me know if it's the right thing. Hold on a second.
I just emailed everyone, so if you check your email, you should see it.
Right here.
It's like 64 pages? Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the file.
that's really tiny though.
There we go. Again, so we have a typo in requisition 11 for the middle school, should be 466, 519. The number for central admin is correct at 22,744.35.
Matt, you're the numbers guy. Everything look good to you?
I mean, I didn't look through a 64-page document, but looks like there's a reasonable tracking within $1,000 plus or minus.
I mean, unless anyone has any questions, we can, I'll take a motion to approve.
Sure.
It's 533, not 534.
It's 5:34.
534-906-08.
534,
Is the total she's
906 and 8 cents.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
If we trust her.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Anyone abstaining? Motion carries.
In addition, one of the details that we've discussed recently with Perkins Eastman is that there was a variance between what you expected from your RFP and what came through in the contract to Perkins Eastman, where they are due some reimbursable expenses, when typically we tell them to roll all costs, all expenses into the fixed fee. There were some documents provided, the permit sets, the sets that went to the state, et cetera, that were provided within the contract, but now anything additional, which predominantly would be additional sets if we have to resubmit something, or the graphics that you've requested, the presentation boards that were beyond what was included in the initial, printing and expense costs. So we're asking to create, since you do see on some of these requisitions, some expenses showing up. So we're looking to create a line item value of $2,500 within the middle school project itself. We'll just keep all the expenses on one side because the fractional percentages become nuts. But to create, and we can do that at the same time we create this not to exceed for the geotech. We'll just make it one transaction and add expenses, which from the final wording of the contract, they are due some reimbursables.
I'm very confused.
You
Explain.
thought you bought it all in.
I thought I brought it all in, and now you're saying I
The
didn't.
contract said sorta, kinda, and that there are some expenses that they can bill for. So we're asking to create a line item of $2,500 to which those miscellaneous expenses can be billed.
What are the miscellaneous expenses that are not part of the contract?
Printing beyond what was needed for submissions and permit, and to get Newfield started, which is predominantly the conform set that has to be in the trailer and all that. And Joe, what other expenses would you anticipate moving forward?
I think we've only been billing for printing that's been beyond the 6 sets, but we've been way beyond that for a while, actually. So we had, I think, 12 sets for planning and zoning, full size, and 11 by 17s, the 4 permit sets, the sets for the state. So we've been way beyond that. So there's just been a couple of miscellaneous stuff in the last couple of invoices for I think it was like $50 or $60 each.
So we had an extra set for the town because they signed the wrong thing?
Yeah, there was some planning and zoning Mylar sheets that had to be reprinted and resent up there.
Okay. Beyond that, was it stuff the town asked for? Like, or was it just part of standard process?
I'd have to look back at what we've included in the last two invoices. I have to look at the tracking number on the invoice and compare it to the printing invoice. I could get you that information. I think
So-
it was around $74 total.
So this isn't an invoice, though. This is just
We're asking
just
to
a
make
line item increase.
Make a line item increase so they can add a line to their billing to charge those expenses to. That would be part of every invoice moving forward.
So we're not approving expenses. We're approving
You're not approving payment.
a budget
you're
line
trying-
item
You're creating a line item, yes,
for which they can then invoice us against.
correct.
But we don't even know what those costs are. Like,
Not sure if I foresee any other printing.
just printing?
At this
What
point.
else would fall under this besides printing?
What else are you creating this for, Jack?
Well, I know that, you've asked for certain presentation boards
Right.
recently, things like that, which were not part of those owed sets, so to speak. So we have to, and I think there were some expenses on previous invoices that were not paid because we didn't have a line against which to charge them, and that would throw the balances off for the billing against these services for this phase of the project.
But like, shouldn't we be getting a quote? Like, if we're asking for something and it's beyond what you feel like is in the contract, shouldn't we be saying, like, shouldn't we be told first it's beyond and then let us decide if we want to spend the money? Yeah, and we could probably gone a Vistaprint. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think moving forward, if there's anything that you feel exceeds what's in the contract, like, tell us, quote us, and then we would decide if we want to pay for it. Like, the retroactive
Okay.
stuff is really hard for us to manage because it's like we have an assumption that it's part, like, we're not lawyers. We just assume if you're not going to quote us separately, we're just going to assume it's part of the contract. So this is basically allowing you to retroactively bill us for something that we had already thought was included, is how I'm hearing it.
Some of those expenses basically retroactive and some forward-looking. Just have a line there. If they don't use it, it gets liquidated at the end of the project.
And we had other reimbursable expenses at other portions of the work that weren't used, so.
Again, this was on Emily's recommendation after reviewing their invoices. She saw charges and she said, well, we have nothing to bill those against. So she was asking that we consider creating a line item.
But this amount is beyond what's in the architect's budget. This would come out of our contingency.
This would come out of contingency, right?
So,
Or would it?
I mean, if this is not coming out of contingency, I don't see a problem with
that
it.
would come out, that would come out of contingency because we've been managing our ad services, just enough going into the architect's line item every time. I believe it would come out of contingency.
So Roseanne, I need to see some backup to know why this is justified. Like, what's the contract state?
Maybe it'd be helpful to see, like, what we're going to be invoiced for retroactively. Like, what are the things that you want to bill us for that are not part of what you think is part of the contract? And then we can kind of get a better idea of what this
All right, we'll
means.
defer that to another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can approve this with those all at the same time.
Can we have an executive session to talk about this proposal, contract stuff?
Should have to ask for it. You have to put a motion for it later, at the end of the day,
Right now?
at the end of a meeting.
Again, this was a recommendation Emily was making based on what she's seen on the invoices, so
Yeah.
it's not a deal breaker for tonight.
Okay.
So we have time to discuss it.
Okay.
Can I request that discussion occur when I could have Joe Costa be part of that?
Our exec session?
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna have an internal, so
Oh.
I can fill him in on what's going on.
You guys.
Yeah.
Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, anything else, Jack?
That's it for us tonight.
Okay. All right. At this point, if you want to go into exec session, do we need to amend the agenda to go into exec session? Lisa?
You can add that to the top. So like you said, you already have it amended. You just add that in
Okay.
to add an executive session.
Okay.
And we have to state the purpose.
All right, so, I'll make the motion to go into executive session to discuss, the Perkins Eastman RFP versus contract. People invited would be the building committee, everyone, and Jack. Everyone else can go home. Someone want to second it?
Second.
All in favor, going to executive session?
Aye.
Okay.